Clemson takes on Georgia Tech, and that's going to be a 12 p.m. Eastern kickoff this Saturday. The Tigers are minus 27 on the road here, total 60 points. We're 4-2 in our last 6 NFL tier package plays on patreon.com/BrockPage. We're also hitting at 67% for the entire 2020 season in our NFL tier membership on that website as well. For more information on how you can join in on the action, link for that site is in the description section below. And once again, that's patreon.com/BrockPage. Now, Clemson's coming fresh off a 25-point victory over Miami. 42-17 was the final in that one. The Tigers are 4-0 on the season, and they're holding their opponents to just 13 points per contest. The Tigers also scored 37 points or more in each and every one of those games as well. Clemson's officially 2-0 in the ACC and are poised to make it 3-0 following Saturday if things go right. Quarterback Trevor Lawrence is completing nearly 73% of his passes, 1,140 yards on the year, 10 touchdown passes as well. He's also rushed it in the end zone twice. And speaking of rushing, Travis Etienne's he's averaging 7 yards a carry, and he's run it in 4 times on the year as well. This Clemson rushing attack is averaging nearly 190 yards per game on the ground. And defensively, this Clemson squad has 18 total team sacks through 4 games, 5 interceptions in the defensive backfield as well. Spector and Murphy each have 2.5 sacks. Maskell with 2 himself. They're taking on a GT squad who's lost 2 out of their last 3, including an embarrassing 17-point loss to Syracuse. Georgia Tech's also giving up an average of 38 points per contest in their last 3 games as well. They're currently just 1-2 straight up in conference play. Quarterback Jeff Sims is completing a dismal 54% of his passes, and he's thrown 8 interceptions already. Now, total-wise, 2 out of Georgia Tech's last 3 ball games got over the total of 60 points. Meanwhile, Clemson's last two games themselves got over that number. So with all that said and done, give me the Clemson Tigers laying 4 scores and the over 60 points in that game. Before we go ahead and move on, just want to take another quick timeout and welcome you to the video. Got some lines and personal leans out for college football week 7. It is week 7 already. Man, time certainly flies. Now, before we go ahead and dive into some more free content here, just got to quickly remind you once again that we are currently 4-2 in our last 6 NFL tier package plays on patreon.com/BrockPage. Been tearing it up in the NFL this season. We're also hitting at 67% for the entire 2020 season in our NFL tier on that site as well. For more information on how you can join in on the action, link for that site is in the description section below. And once again, that's patreon.com/BrockPage. Moving on, we're going to take a look at Louisville, Notre Dame, 2:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff. The Fighting Irish are minus 17, total 64.5. The Cardinals on the other side are plus $5 for an upset win. Louisville's on a 3-game losing streak. Losses to Georgia Tech, Pitt, and Miami during that stretch. They lost by 12 points per contest on average during that span as well. The Cardinals are a winless 0-3 straight up in ACC play, and they give up 26 points per game defensively. The Louisville defensive front is averaging just 1.7 sacks per contest. Meanwhile, the secondary is they've picked up just 1 interception through 4 games. Offensively, Malik Cunningham's been sacked 14 times, and he's thrown 5 interceptions. Louisville's taking on a Notre Dame squad who's 3-0 overall for the season, 2-0 straight up in conference play. The Irish have a dominating margin of victory of 27 points per win. They're also offensively averaging over 40 points a game as well. Kyron Williams has touched it 48 times on the ground for 359 and 4 touchdowns. He's also the leading receiver with 114 receiving yards out of the backfield as well. Defensively, the Irish are averaging 3 sacks a game, mostly thanks to Isaiah Foskey and Atakumbo Ogundeji, who each have a pair of sacks themselves. Kyle Hamilton's leading the club in tackles with 15 of them. When it comes to the total in this one, 2 out of Notre Dame's 3 games on the season stayed well below the total of 64.5 points. Their lone game that got over that number got over it late very late in the game. Meanwhile, 2 out of Louisville's last 3 ball games got well over the 64.5 total points themselves. Give me Notre Dame laying 3 scores and the over 64.5 in that contest. All right, next matchup, LSU, Florida, 3:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff. The Gators are the 13.5-point favorite in the Swamp, total 73. The Gators are 2-1 thus far in the season. Their lone loss was this past weekend against Texas A&M. Despite putting up 38 big points on the Aggies, just wasn't enough. The Gators have been very good offensively this season, 38 points or more in each of their first 3 games. Quarterback Kyle Trask, he's completing 72% of his passes, and he's thrown for 14 touchdowns already compared to just 1 interception. Trask is throwing for 332 yards a game, and he's been sacked just 4 times. He's been awesome this season. His favorite targets are tight end Kyle Pitts and wideout Kadarius Toney. These guys are combining for over 170 yards receiving a game on average. Pitts has a staggering 7 touchdown receptions through just 3 games. Meanwhile, Toney scored 4 times himself. The kind of numbers these two are putting up are video game worthy. And defensively, despite struggling, I get it, significantly in many spots, linebacker Ventrell Miller, he's all over the place. He's leading this team in tackles with 30 of them, so I just figured I'd mention him because he's been all over the field. Now, Florida's taking on a seemingly disheveled LSU program who just lost their second game of 2020 this past weekend against Missouri. The Tigers have given up 99 total points in their 2 losses. And shockingly, 2 out of LSU's 3 contests on the season got over the total of 73 points. Meanwhile, the Gators on the other side saw 2 out of their last 3 ball games get over that number themselves. Give me the Gators laying the points and the over 73 in that game. Next matchup, UNC, Florida State, 7 p.m. Eastern kickoff. The Tar Heels are laying a dozen on the road, total 61 and a hook. And if you like the Noles in an upset at home, they're plus 350 for an outright victory. Now, Florida State's been victorious in just 1 out of their 4 games on the season. Really struggling. Winless in conference play. The Noles lost to Georgia Tech, Miami, Florida, and Notre Dame. And they averaged just 16 points per contest during that stretch. Matter of fact, they lost by an average of 20 points a game in those 3 conference losses. Meanwhile, their lone victory was a come-from-behind victory against Jacksonville State in their 3rd game of the season. Now, the Noles have thrown for 6 interceptions, and they've been sacked 15 times. The Noles have been using a combination of 3 different quarterbacks already through 4 games. It's kind of like quarterback, by committee here. Meanwhile, defensively, the big guys up front have mustered up a measly 3 sacks so far on the season. That's not going to get the job done. That's good for an average of just 0.7 sacks per game. They're way too athletic for that. They're taking on a very good UNC squad who's coming fresh off a 56-45 victory over the Virginia Tech Hokies. The Tar Heels are averaging 38 points per contest, while the big, hog mollies up front, they're clearing gaping holes for this UNC rushing attack up front. Running back Michael Carter's touched it 40 times for 413 yards and a couple of scores. Carter's averaging a staggering 10.3 yards per carry. Meanwhile, the workhorse, Javonte Williams, has carried it 45 times for 283 and has banged his way into the end zone 6 times through 3 games. This Tar Heel rushing attack is averaging nearly 250 yards on the ground alone per contest. Meanwhile, defensively, really creative stunts and creative looks have given this Tar Heel defense 11 sacks thus far in the year. Linebacker Chaz Surratt leads the team with 21 tackles and 3 sacks. And, of course, defensive lineman Tamari Fox, the Fox brothers, he also has 11 solo tackles and 3 sacks himself. Now, scoring-wise, this UNC defense was holding their opponents to just 14 points per contest before their shootout with Virginia Tech. 2 out of their 3 games on the season stayed under the total of 61.5. Meanwhile, on the other side, FSU scoring just 18 points per contest. It really can't seem to be, they really can't seem to stay committed to one quarterback. So with all that said and done, give me the Tar Heels laying a dozen and the under 61.5 in that contest. Next and final matchup, it is going to be Bulldogs tied at 8 p.m. East. Alabama's -7 with the total at 59 flat. The Bulldogs of Georgia are plus $1.90 for an outright win. The Bulldogs are coming fresh off a very impressive win over Tennessee, where they racked up 44 points against the Vols. Zamir White's rushed for 209 yards and 4 scores on the ground for Georgia. The Bulldogs are averaging nearly 175 yards on the ground per contest. Stetson Bennett's also completing 63% of his passes for 5 touchdowns and 0 picks. Not overly impressive numbers, but very, very safe and efficient game manager. Now, his favorite target has been Kearis Jackson, who has 19 receptions for 300 yards. Jackson's averaging triple digits a game through 3 contests. This Bulldog defense is also holding their opponents to just a dozen points per contest. They have 10 total sacks through 3 games and 7 takeaways. Defensive backs Eric Stokes and Richard LeCount each have a pair of interceptions from the secondary. And linebacker Aziz Ojulari is currently leading the squad with 3 sacks, along with a dozen tackles. They're taking on a Crimson Tide team who gave up a staggering 48 points to Ole Miss this past Saturday, despite winning that game. This Bama D has given up 72 points in their past 2 contests, and they've gotten to the quarterback just 5 times. Now, total-wise, Bama's last 2 straight got over the total of 59 points. Matter of fact, offensively, they've scored 38 points or more in each one of their 3 games thus far in the year. Meanwhile, the Bulldogs, on the other side of things, they are coming fresh off a game that went 6 points above our current posted total as well for this game. So I do like the Dogs catching the touchdown here as the dog. Give me the Georgia Bulldogs +7 in the over 59 in that contest. And with that said, guys, that is going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on Patreon. If you guys decide to get a package here today, just keep in mind we bill you the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, happy Monday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage.